responders can't get there. They can't even get to their station to get out to help them.
Especially if there's an air boost, like a megaton nuclear bomb over the city.
They don't have food, and they don't have water. They don't know how much they have. And you hear the things thrown around like, 72 hours. Prepare yourself for 72 hours. And that's not a bad number. But often the case is it's longer, and that number is getting longer. And what's most important is water. And if one ever picked up, it's about a gallon a day per person, depending on the temperature outside and how much work you're doing. And that, try lifting 5 gallons of water. Suppose you have a family of 4. A lot of water to have to carry. So you build basically 2 kits at home. One, if you have to evacuate in an instant, you get your important things, the most important essentials to eat, to sleep, to drink, and you can just grab to go and get in your car and take off and evacuate. But there should be a bigger, better kit at home. And so having the food and the right foods, non-perishable foods, foods that vermin can't get into, so they have to be protected, and they have to be long-lived. Check the expiration date. Rotate things in and out. You can get large caches of food at a lot of the chain stores, and canned foods will last sometimes years, and note that they have expiration dates, but they're also heavy. Trail mix type things have high calories, and they're not heavy, but rats can eat through the paper. So one has to be selective. What one really should do is get my book, and then I'll tell you what to do. Or one.
No, you're right. It's a checklist. It's a checklist.
There are a lot of books out on disaster preparedness.
No, there's no doubt. How long does water last, Jeffrey, in a jug?
Well, if you just pour it into a clean jug, you're taking a chance. You're better off getting sealed water. We often teach our folks who we train to get these racks of bottled water, and depending on the size of their family, have several racks, and rotate these in and out so that you're always ahead of the expiration date, and you have enough water on hand. And you don't, when you have to use the water, you're not opening up a big container, you're opening up a small container, so you're not contaminating a large amount of water, because once you've opened it up, taken a drink, you've already put some bacteria in it. But if it's a small container, like a half, like a half a quart, or there's 16 ounces, 12 ounces, 24 ounces, and you have those racks piled up perhaps in your garage next to your emergency kit. Water is the most important thing. You can live without food for several weeks. In fact, some of us probably can make it a lot longer than that. But you can't live more than a few.
You could have mentioned preserving water using the silver. You can use silver to preserve water. You can treat and find water the low-tech way, like slow sand filters. Tips on creating slow sand filters. La-di-da-da-da-da-da-da. The Bangladesh Sari filter, where, in Bangladesh, where annual flooding often contaminates nearly all surface waters, and where over half of the tube wells are severely contaminated with arsenic and fluoride, villagers have been trained to make a reasonably effective filter out of a minimum of 8 layers of folded sari, whatever the shit that is. Charcoal filters, solar stills, plant water pump and still. What else? Freaking traditional water distillation, you know what I mean? Like freaking... fuck it. What's this guy gotta say now?
You have an out-of-state contact that you all contact and tell them where you're at. If it's a really bad disaster and there's no way to contact them, wait for the Red Cross. The Red Cross will set up contact lines, and you can all contact Aunt so-and-so in Chicago or Oklahoma City or wherever they are, far away from the disaster. So you all know where you are, and you all know you're safe. Kids, when there's a fire in a home, will...
Listen, I think more realistically, get your most dear loved ones and agree on a spot to initially meet, like fucking the day of the disaster, immediately if need be, like fucking in the event of, and then Some people are going to have to go way out, like 150 miles into the wilderness, away from the nearest paved roads, if it's the worst of the worst. And then everybody has to make their own plans to get there, and like to exit the cities and the metropolitan areas, which will be just like unprecedented historical, like tens of millions clustered with nothing, like chaos. Be out the door the morning at the latest of the next day after the incendiary fucking event. When the levee breaks, mama, you got to move.
Stay with people in the shelter unless they are like a helper for blind folks or compassion or a number of trained dogs, and even those dogs can decompensate and have to be put in the pet section. You have to bring your own food, you got to bring your own leashes, you got to bring your own everything for the pet. But they will take the pets, they are required by law. There's some variations between states, but you can take your pet. You need to know what to do with your medications. That's where my book comes in. That's a lot different than many, is that a lot of the preparedness books just tell you ahead of time what you should have in your kit and have these kind of plans, but none of them, or very few of them, talk about what you should do during the disaster, and especially afterwards, what to do, who to contact, how to contact them. Phones will be down, but cell phones you might be able to text with. You might not be able to call, but you might be able to text.
So if we use our reason buster, like fucking, you know, if it's that important, plan ahead right now with your dearest loved ones, like that there would be no, in the worst event, communication. Might even have an agreed upon place to meet. Day of situation. Fucking be out the door by the fucking morning of the next fucking day, man. And like hopefully you will have taken some shit, like essential supplies, out into the remote wilderness. Get the fuck away from the clusters of tens of millions of people that within 4 or 5 days after this breakdown will suddenly look at each other down this street, that street, and go, oh shit, there ain't no groceries to fucking gas, ain't coming. Within days, there's going to be chaos and death, looting, and unmanageable even by law enforcement and the National Guard. In the worst case scenario of a collapse of rule of law dealt with. Get your toy lightsaber and prepare for World War VII.
Hurricane territory or tornado alley or earthquake areas, what am I going to do with my medicines? And then there's an interesting problem, is should you have certain medications just in case? Should you have pain medicine? Should you have 10 Tylenols with codeine?
Adderall, dexedrine, amphetamine, nothing to be abused, but works wonders in the need to get the F out and keep going until everyone's gotten out, and then you could take a breather and like maybe take a nap. Maybe some antibiotics, I'm thinking bactericin. I'm not a doctor, but I work around the essentials.
Had any medications?
Well,
so,
you know,
Lidocaine, like fucking xylocaine for like grievous pain.
Okay, an unrelated subject.
some kind of disaster. You might want to share your story with us on just how you got through it. I'm George Norrie, back in a moment on Coast to Coast.